This show is supported by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. No matter your seat at the match, Twin Cities Eye Consultants will make sure you can see your favorite players. Book your next eye exam 24/7 at tcecmn.com. Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday preview presented by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, plenty to discuss today, but how are you doing? Spring break week across many schools across Minnesota, so it's been a fun time, especially as a parent myself with kids at home while trying to work. How are you today, sir?
Yes, I like how you put that, while trying to work. Excuse me. No, I'm doing well. It's always a weird week when you don't have a game, and the next thing you know, we got a game in 2 days, and it feels like it's further out. So it's one of those ones where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Next thing you know, we're like, ooh, we got a big game Saturday. So overall good. Obviously a ton of sports, ton of soccer during the break. So I think that was kind of cool to follow and watch and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. We got plenty to discuss here. So let's jump right into it. U.S. men's national team stuff. I'll get to the Minnesota United stuff a little bit later on as we build through the podcast, but want to jump into the U.S. men's national team. We'll start international and then come back more local. Couple of losses for the U.S., 5-2 to Belgium, and then 2-0 to Portugal. Obviously, the mood around the camp and around the fan base for the U.S. men's national team in the last international window before the World Cup starts, before Mauricio Pochettino names his squad, not the greatest coming off of those two games. I will admit I watched the first half of the Belgium game where I thought they looked pretty decent. I went out to run some errands in the second half, and the score notifications came flooding in as Belgium just kept racking up goals, and it's just like, whoa, what happened here? So Portugal game I watched a little bit more of, and obviously not the greatest of two performances for Minnesota, or for U.S. men's national team, ahead of the World Cup. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of those moments where you don't want to get too high or too low based on, I think this window in the end wasn't as much about tactics as it was about player assessment to get to that final roster spot. But I'll start with, like everybody else, it's just not good enough. And there is a level of frustration because it didn't look like we had an identity based on our last window in terms of like kind of playing against pretty good competition, and then we're going to be competitive. So there's no doubt, bad taste. I know a lot of people are pissed off. I'm pissed, but I'm not like devastated because, again, I think it was more about player assessment. Now that's my glass half full.
Yeah.
I am frustrated with the tactics and the identity of the team right now, which is I don't know quite what it is. And I would like us to be more competitive against some of the better teams around the world at home. So there's no doubt, I think there's a level of frustration. Just trying to think about how we could turn that around to build some positive momentum going to the World Cup, because I'm sure as fans, we're pretty negative right now. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at some of the two lineups that Mauricio Pochettino went with, and there was obviously, as you said, a lot of experimentation there, kind of looking for how players fit in with other players. And clearly it seems to me, and this isn't my take, it's one I've heard elsewhere, and I kind of agree with it. It seems to me that this was kind of a window for Pochettino, for a guy who probably knows pretty much who he's going to go with that 26, just wants to see how different pieces fit in here and there if they're called upon in games during the World Cup, because obviously those games come thick and fast. You're going to have to rotate players in and out of your lineup. So this felt like a window where Pochettino was kind of looking at who fits with who, and kind of just those matchups across the field and how those guys play off of each other. I don't know if that's your take, but that's kind of how it felt to me. And after doing a lot of listening to podcasts, reading a lot, that feels like kind of the general consensus that, the vibes aren't great. The play on the field didn't look good at all, but it felt like more of a window where Pochettino was just trying to see who fits with who on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's big player assessments, Jonathan. I mean, because again,
Yeah.
when you're missing Dest and Adams,
Hmm.
um,
Especially Adams because of how key
Luna,
he is in that midfield.
yeah, Adams, Luna, Dest. Who else was missing? Uh, yeah, maybe there was one other one. But long story short, I still think it's him kind of finalizing that 26. Because, I mean, I would have loved it to have been more. If I'm being honest, like, I think people should be pissed about the fact that we didn't have an identity and that a lot of
Yeah.
teams at this stage do have an identity. And again, I'm trying to find a silver lining. And I think it's that we have a chance now to maybe build something before the World Cup. But there's no doubt when you get worked by really good teams around the world, it's
Yeah.
a nice reminder of where you are. I actually think my biggest thing that came out of it, and it's interesting. I think Pochettino had a tweet, and did you see it about us not having a top 100 player in the world?
Yeah, I think that was in the press conference where he was asked about the players and how they stack up and his assessment of the teams that they played. And I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said that Belgium and Portugal have top 100 players. We don't necessarily have that. It's like that was going to be a question of mine. It's like that doesn't seem like the greatest quote to come from your own head coach. That's saying that your
No,
guys
and
aren't good
again,
enough.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
I mean, again,
probably
I think.
true, but do you really want your own head coach saying that?
Well, uh, if I look at this break and I look at what we need for the World Cup, is we need 26 guys on a roster committed
Yeah.
to play with the identity that and culture that he wants to build, but that represents the United States of America. And I would say, consciously, subconsciously, that might have been directed at some of our European stars who are stars.
Hmm.
And I kind of make this point though, and I think it's similar to Pochettino. I'd say like we don't have any current global superstars.
Right.
And I'll give you my definition of a global superstar. My definition of global superstar is they have to be playing for these specific teams. That's it. It's Barcelona, it's Real Madrid, it's Manchester City, it's PSG, it's Bayern, it's maybe a combination of Manchester United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. That's it.
Yeah.
In my view, if you're not playing for any of those teams, and I don't care where you're from, what country you're from, you should be humble to say, I am not a global superstar. Because those teams are so much further along than everybody else when it comes to the level of players they sign. That you're a star. Don't get me wrong. This is by far the most European stars we've ever had on our national team roster, without a doubt. And the only thing I can say is that maybe this window humbled where our guys are to remind ourselves our best chance of doing well in our DNA is really coming together as a group, and we're fighting for the little moments and the big moments. So, it's a tough one. Like I said, I both goals against Portugal, McKennie lost the ball in the one goal and Pulisic on the other. So they've done some other good things in the field, but I think we got to get this group being that they all have big roles to play, and they can only excel by starting by doing the little things as kind of a unit versus kind of like certain teams do have superstars that they build their teams around.
Yeah, we talk about the stars in this team and how this felt like because it's a World Cup here on home soil that this was going to be, and with the age of the group and the talent that they have, that this is going to be their best chance to go really far in the tournament. And obviously, the build up to this over the last 4 years has been a little stop start. It's been a bit of a roller coaster where you've had peaks, you've had big droughts, and it hasn't been a consistent kind of build up to the tournament. It's been a little bit shaky here and there, and a big part of that is Christian Pulisic, and he's been the talking point over the past couple days, over the past couple weeks with this team, and on a scoring drought, hasn't scored in 8 games that he's played for the U.S. That goes back to I think November of 2024 in the
When's the last time he
13th
scored for
minute.
Milan as well? Right now,
Yeah.
it's not like he's had a great
And that's weird
run of
because he
games
started
since.
off the season with
Yeah,
Milan in incredible form, and it's just kind of fallen off as the season's worn on. So you hope that whatever is going on with him, he can fix it heading into the World Cup. Because obviously, we talk about how you want to build up a team, but if it feels like that where Pulisic goes, this team will go if he's going to be on the field. And it seems like they struggled when he was on the field this past week.
yeah. I mean, I think again, I would say we need to bring out the best of Christian by the group becoming more of a unit, and even
Yeah.
Christian himself embracing that we don't need him to be a superstar to start.
Yeah.
We need him to become a superstar because the team is bigger than any individual. And again, I think all these guys care, and I think they
Right.
want us to win. I just think that we have to make sure that Pochettino built a group that identity, which is, has roles and responsibilities, so they can, as stars, maybe become superstars for this World Cup. And ironically enough, I'm still actually hopeful, partly because I think we got really humbled these two games by not playing the way I think we're going to need to play in the World Cup to really make a run. And I think it gives our groups a chance to think about it and work on it in essentially our last window and the weeks of training leading up to World Cup. So I know there's going to be a lot of people like, man, he's crazy. This is nuts. We are in a hole that we can't dig out of. He can't do it. I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that this group only has one way out, and that is coming together and ready to fight by the World Cup.
Yeah.
If we don't, we'll somehow fizzle out. But I just think the group is a different types of teams than we just played. So I think there'll be a little bit easier opponents, and I think we'll have a real ability to build into getting out of the group and then really being competitive. I don't know if that means going 1 or 2 or 3 rounds. Let's see where it goes, but there's no doubt we got humbled. And another thing that's good, I'm going to say it's a little harsh, is this is an indictment on Italian soccer a little bit too, if I'm being honest. They just didn't qualify for the World Cup.
Yep.
And it's
now you're jumping ahead of me on the rundown. I was going to get to the Italian soccer because you and I were texting about it earlier.
Yeah, but I'm just going to combine it to it's amazing that we've got a player playing for Milan Juventus, two of the most historic clubs in the history of the game. But they're not in those 8 clubs I mentioned.
Right.
The Italian league is not anywhere
falling
near
off
a top level league in Europe compared to the other big leagues. So you have to take that account where our guys are playing too, and that it's great. But again, they can be playing for those other bigger clubs if they build and grow again as a player and evolve. But there's something to that too that I know sounds harsh, and I'm not trying to be too harsh, but it's just a reality that they're not at the biggest clubs in the world.
Right. I think also part of it for me watching these past 2 games is obviously the factor of how we felt coming off the last 2 games of last year, where you beat Paraguay 2-1 and you just thrashed Uruguay 5-1 in the final 2 games of last year. And you felt like, especially with the games, the previous couple games before that as well, against Ecuador and Australia, you felt like there was kind of this uptick that they were starting to finally find their form under Pochettino. And then you get these 2 games and they lay an egg and it just looks really bad. And now you're back to, it feels like you're back to square one, looking at this thing and wondering, okay, what are the expectations for this group in the World Cup? Because you look at their group, they should on paper be able to get out of that group. But with the way they played these last 2 games, you start to question that. But then you add in how they ended last year and it's like, okay, I don't know what this team is heading into the World Cup. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but one of my favorite things about soccer is you get to kind of project both players you want to play and systems. And I was just super disappointed with the tactics of this window. Again, I think my brain is like, I don't think he cares much about the tactics. There aren't a lot of teams in our group like Portugal and Belgium, so maybe it was just about player assessment. But I was disappointed that he didn't keep that energy of put an athletic back 3 around Ream. So 2 athletic players around Ream, went back 3. We started a back 4 against Belgium. And Ream was really exposed personally. So again, and then I thought we had great wing backs in Freeman and Robinson now who's back, who actually was our biggest bright spot probably of the 2 games.
Yeah.
And again, I think Dest can get in there. So I'm really excited with the wing backs. And then whatever combination of midfield, I really like the box midfield. So something like Tessman and Berhalter, or maybe Tessman and Adams. And then you maybe put Pulisic, McKennie in those kind of like 2 number 10 roles, but you don't just let them run around the field so we don't have our shape when we lose the ball.
Right.
It's like I feel like they have reign to go wherever they want. And I think they have to be a little more disciplined. And then you put up a guy up top, whether it's Balogun. I mean, Hadjire was injured. Pepe didn't play a lot. How do you say it, Aubameyang?
I'm looking at it.
Aubameyang. Yeah, I'm never good.
We've had to call his name before, and I'm just blanking it. But yeah,
So I was disappointed that he didn't because that
Ajman.
really felt like two good games with that system. So it bummed me they went away from that model a little bit. Obviously, against Portugal, we went back to the back three. We looked a little more steady for sure.
It was Ajman, by the way, Patrick Ajman. That's the one.
Yes,
I just see it written down
horrible.
on
Yeah.
the rundown to figure out to remember what it was. But you mentioned something there. Tim Ream, or Ream at the back, in the defense. Obviously, was exposed in that Belgium game. Is he one of your starters at that center back spot going into the World Cup? I feel it feels like Chris Richards has kind of locked down one of the center back spots, however they want to play. Is Ream in that group, or is that still a question of who Chris Richards' partner going to be in the back?
Well, I don't think it should be a back four like that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so
They
to
looked
me,
good when they had the back three, the back five.
yeah, I feel like if you get two athletic guys, I personally like Miles Robinson, Richards, and Ream because
Hmm.
that's kind of the you throw two athletic guys around Ream, and I think you bring out Ream's qualities. If it's a back four, whew, maybe you go with Trusty and Richards. They did all right. Although I didn't love Trusty's closing down in that second goal for Portugal. I felt like he should have read the back pass heel by Fernandez because he had nothing else he could do, and he kind of
Yeah.
went deeper to box defend versus actually go down and close the guy. So, by the way, the first goal, same defending, was horrible. I mean, as good as
Yeah.
the finish was, that first touch by Vini was so high, like
Yeah. And he had to sit there, wait. It felt like forever, and
forever.
no one was around him.
No, and you know, in soccer, the moment somebody has a bad touch, that's usually when defenders crush guys. Like you
Yeah.
just know, like that's why touch is so important. So, some bad individual defending mistakes on both those goals as well.
Last question on the U.S.
Yeah.
goalkeeper. I know that's a position that's always, or that at least in this window, the past couple windows, has been a question mark. Who's your starting goalkeeper after what you saw the past two games? Is it Freeze? Is it Turner? Someone else?
No, it's got to be Freeze. I mean, and again, I think Turner didn't necessarily play bad. He like gave five goals. I just think the confidence level of where
Yeah.
he is and just his overall arc of his last 3 or 4 years of his career have been so probably hard. He just does not look commanding. And he made some good saves in that Belgian game too. But I think Freeze is this kind of goalie that he's going to give you a 6.5 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. And then we got to build a team around him to make sure we're not giving up,
Yeah.
a lot of chances.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, that one save he made against Fernandez in that first half was outstanding. That was world class.
Yeah, absolutely.
He got down low, knocked it wide of the post. Great save.
Yeah, I think for me, it's got to be Freeze right now. Just as you said, it feels like
Yeah.
he's the more confident keeper of the two. So, and those are really the only two competing for that spot. So I expect he'll be in that. Elsewhere, you already mentioned it. Italy out. They lose in penalties to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Italy missing their third straight World Cup. If they somehow make the 2030 World Cup, as I texted you, it'll be Gianluigi Donnarumma's first World Cup that he's appearing in, and he'll be 31 years old. For a guy who's been kind of on the global stage as one of the best goalkeepers, or thought of as one of the best goalkeepers in the world, making his, if they make it, and that's a big question at this point because you missed three in a row. There's no certainty at that point anymore. That's incredible that a guy like that has never been to the World Cup, and Italy just obviously with a lot of questions once again after they miss out on a World Cup.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned to you that they only have one superstar in the roster, and that's the goalie. So I don't think he's as impactful in the run of the game. So I think Italy's got to be honest about where they are within the soccer world and what their challenges are. So I think when you look at the aging, kind of 2006 World Cup team that has a lot of quotes about them not qualifying, similar to us, and we talk about our American mentality and that's our identity. They're talking about their identity as warriors. And they're right. They get stretched a lot. They don't really keep that Catenaccio tightness and like hard, tough individual and group defending that they're known for. So it's a good example that other countries have bigger problems, even us. We have a chance to right our ship here coming a couple months and show this country that we're growing and these guys are hungry to kind of still be pioneers for the sport on a global scale. Italy is the last decade and a half, 4 World Cup titles, not qualifying 3 straight times is insane. It really is.
Once was weird enough. Twice was wild. 3 was kind of incomprehensible that they've done it 3 times in a row.
Yeah. And by the way, a kid from Appleton, Wisconsin, scoring the winning PK to keep them out of the World Cup is amazing too. Small world a little bit there.
I love the scenes of the nation celebrating afterwards, making the World
Oh,
Cup, and then just flooding the streets. It was awesome. One of those
yeah.
cool experiences. Elsewhere, this will impact the U.S. Turkey advances. They beat Kosovo in the final. A very tight battle there between those two teams. But Turkey now joining the group of USA, Paraguay, Australia, and those are all three teams that the U.S. have played recently. I don't know whether they planned that out or not, but those are three teams that they played recently. We've seen them against them, so that sets up for an interesting group. Your expectation, obviously, is that they advance out of the group, right? Or has that taken a little bit of a hit after what you saw the past two games?
No. And by the way, I am horrible with names. We've talked about it on the show. I did have to go up and look up Turkey.
Turkey, yeah,
Yeah. And I actually looked up why, and it's because they don't want to be associated with turkeys anymore.
it's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? I think
I love it.
I think Turkey is the more traditional name,
Yep.
but they paid some consulting firm some money to, help them not.
Consulting firm about the name of your
Yeah.
nation. That's
I was hoping for Kosovo, honestly, because I think that's, a team I don't think has ever been to a World Cup and probably a little bit easier opponent. But yeah, I think they're very good. Ironically, I think the last time Turkey was in the World Cup, they got third, 2002-ish.
they've
But
always been one of those dark horse teams that people pick and as a team that could surprise and shock a bunch of people
yes,
at the tournaments.
yeah. No, I mean, it's no groups are necessarily easy. And I think everybody else will look at us as maybe like we're not, we could be Netherlands or Brazil or France or
Yeah.
Spain in the group and not the US. So I certainly think all three of the teams that are in our group are going to be looking at this as an opportunity. But I, we have to get out of our group. It's just, we have to have that mentality. Like right now, I don't care what happened last weekend. We have to get out of this group. We got to find a way to get points. First two games very defensive. I think Turkey's a little bit more expansive offensively. So, and it'll be the third game. So we'll see where that goes, how our first two game goes, and what that means when we play Turkey in that last game of the group.
Yeah, elsewhere, Sweden knocks out Poland, Sweden in the World Cup. Czechia beats Denmark in the finals. Czechia's in the World Cup, and then Iraq, and then the DR Congo are in as well, knocking out Jamaica and Bolivia. Jamaica, CONCACAF team here, not making the World Cup at the final stage, kind of tripping over the last hurdle there. Disappointing for them, but World Cup stage is set now. All the teams, all 48 teams are geared up and ready to go. And here we go, Manny. In a couple months' time, the World Cup is ready to go. Question before we move on elsewhere across Minnesota United and into previewing this game, who's your favorites going into the World Cup after everything you've seen in a couple months out now?
Yep, I think it has to be France, then Spain, then Argentina, then England.
Ooh.
Then maybe Colombia. I'm leaving out Germany and Brazil because I
say there's some big names missing there. You don't like what Ancelotti's done with Brazil?
I just think it's one of the weaker rosters in a long time.
That's fair. I also think it's just a weird fit. Like I know he has the connection with some of the,
yeah, go ahead.
I know he has the connection with some of the Brazilian players from when he was the head coach and manager at Real Madrid, but I just feel like that's kind of a weird fit there. And I'm interested to see how that goes for them in the World Cup. But it doesn't feel like they come in as the global power that they generally do.
They don't have nearly as many superstars as they usually do on that roster. There's no doubt about it. So.
Yeah. Nothing says classy quite like premium hospitality at Allianz Field. Our spaces offer unforgettable accommodations for both game day and non-game day gatherings, for groups as small as your cubicle cluster or as large as your entire office. And what a view! Check out our spaces at allianzfield.com. I'm looking forward to this. This should be a really fun World Cup. Obviously, a lot going on, and it's going to be a big one. I'm excited to see what the U.S. can do, and hopefully we'll see how they do and get out of the group stage and how far they can go into the World Cup. Back at home, Minnesota United preparing for a game against the LA Galaxy this weekend. It's a big one for Minnesota, big one for the LA Galaxy. It'll be Landon Donovan Appreciation Night. They're celebrating their icon there at LA this weekend. So there'll be a lot of festivities in Los Angeles, but for Minnesota, looking to bounce back after a couple of down results. You get the draw going into the international break after a couple disappointing losses. Manny, before we kind of talk more about LA Galaxy, your thoughts on where Minnesota United stand? Obviously, we've got a couple of injuries still kind of hanging over the club, but where the Loons stand after an international break, having a couple of weeks off here to prepare for this one.
Well, it was nice to bounce back and have a shutout after giving up 6 against Vancouver.
Yeah.
I think we have to remind that was a good, solid defensive home game. We had some offensive moments, and certainly when Hamas came on, there was a nice pop. So I think there's some excitement there about how do we get him integrated to help this team get going and scoring goals. It's a tough game in that, I think both teams have 5 points. I think the Galaxy are desperate to get a home win and kind of get their season going from a point standpoint and trying to get up the table. I think it's just important for us, particularly we don't always play that well at the Galaxy, and I think they're in a point of their season like us where they're not sure their identity, we're not sure ours. I just look at that as an opportunity. So I think the break, hopefully we got a deep breath. We're ready to kind of have a little more steel than we did the last time we went on the road and show that we're hungry to be a good road team this year.
Yeah, as you said, they're on 5 points as well. Their last win, their only win of the season, coming back at the end of February, a 3-0 home win against Charlotte. But after that, it was a 4-1 thumping at the hands of Colorado Rapids, where they gave up 3 of those goals late on in the match after a red card.
Yeah.
They lose 2-1 to Sporting Kansas City. Dejan Jovelic, the former LA Galaxy player, has himself a great night in that one. Great goal, and then great assist, or great kind of dummy run there to allow the second goal in that one, and then a 1-1 draw with the Portland Timbers, where they were up a man for a significant portion of that match. So yeah, it's been a tricky start for them, but they've gotten goals out of Joao Klaus, who I know you and I, when that move came down, we were wondering how that would fit in. Well, he's fit in really nicely. 5 goals already in 5 appearances, and a lot of those coming on headers, because he is just a menace in the box, a menace in the air. That is going to be a key player for the Loons to shut down this weekend.
Yeah, it is, and they've got some wingers that can get some good service and cut inside and combine with them. So I think very quickly we know their front 3 is very, very dangerous. It means we've got to win the midfield. It means we've really got to limit them, opening us up to allow those 2 guys to get in space and run. And it means that our box defenders have to be spot on with Klaus, because he's one of those guys who's been around a long time. And he understands if you give him a space in that box, he will attack that ball massively. So it's a really important game for us to be hungry to kind of extend the defensive shape we had against Seattle. I think it'll be a little more open. I do think the Galaxy tend to allow you to get numbers forward. So it's going to be really important that we do that effectively and efficiently while we can still keep our shape defensively.
Yeah, they you mentioned their wingers, and obviously Gabriel Peck is a guy that has been a menace to this team since he joined the league. He's been a menace to pretty much the entire league since he joined. You got Marco Royce there, kind of operating as that number 10. He's been effective, and then Eric Tommy's been filling in for Joseph Paintsel, who's been out injured. Whether we see Paintsel or not is to be a question, but also Galaxy, just like the last couple opponents for the Loons, they have a big game midweek in CONCACAF Champions Cup action. They are down in Mexico at Toluca, at altitude, so that'll certainly play into this one. Do you expect a full strength side now that they've also had a couple of weeks off? I know their defense is a bit of a question. Glesnes is a offseason transfer that they've had come in. He's only played a couple of games there for them. Justin Hack as well. They've had some changes on that defensive side, still allowing goals and shipping goals though. But do you expect a full strength side out of them with a massive game on Wednesday night?
Probably not. Probably not. I think there'll be some interesting, whether it's at halftime or whether it's second half and saving some guys' legs. I think it's too big of a game for them to put the physical output, to not have certain guys not try to go the full 90. But it'll be interesting to see who it is. Again, I'm a little cautious because I felt like Nashville and Vancouver had the same challenges.
Mm-hmm.
and we did not perform as well as we'd liked, and so it kind of went away. So I don't know if I want to overanalyze it this time
Yeah.
because it seemed to not we seemed to not be able to use it to our advantage. So I'm more trying to think about what we need to do and how we need to win the game, no matter who's on the field for them. A little bit like how our Seattle approaches versus like what are they going to do? It's to me, it's more about what are we going to do.
Yeah, you mentioned that. And what do you expect the Loons to do defensively? Because we saw the returner of the back five in that game against Seattle, and it was Nicholas Romero who had a great game in his season debut. Thought he played well alongside Morris Duggan, who's been excellent for this team this season. Michael Boxall's still out. I think the latest reporting was that he'll probably miss this game as well as he continues to recover from his injury. So do you expect it to be a back three? Is it going back to a back four as we continue to look for that evolution? We talked about last week with Andrew Weeby just trying to evolve from what they have been and continue that kind of path towards playing with a little bit more of the ball, playing with a little bit more possession and higher up the field.
Yeah, I still think that we're going to go with a back three, but I don't think that's the only way you can evolve higher up the field, though. Like I
Yeah.
said, I think there's very quickly you said back three, not back five. So right there,
Yeah.
you're kind of assuming you're going to still try to be higher up the field, but I think you got to do it cautiously. Um, I think that the question will be guys coming back international break, which we haven't talked about. How tired are they? Is Triantis' legs good? He played 90 minutes, played well in a 0-0 tie against Hungary. So he's probably the biggest question mark about does he go or is it a change to somebody else? Um, there's a lot of guys that have been here for a full weekend of training and with this week. I think they had a couple of days off right away, but they've been training for a good week now together, the group here. So do you kind of continue and go with that group? It's hard to say, but I do think you're right in that I can't see how they would switch from the back three, given how well we played against Seattle defensively.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for me is that it just looked a little bit more sturdy. It looked a little bit more cohesive than we've seen so far this season as they've tried to evolve. And when you go to that back five, obviously you get a little bit more defensive, but you can push up. You can go to a back three, as we said, and push those wing backs up into the midfield and have them play with the ball a little bit higher. So I'd expect. I think I'm the same way. I would expect that it's going to be the back three again, and you kind of just go with that comfort shape and just allow these guys to get a little bit more comfortable on the ball in a kind of a tactics or formation that they're more comfortable with. James Rodriguez, another one of the internationals that was away on international duty for Minnesota United over the past couple weeks over the past week, played 63 minutes in both the games for Colombia against Croatia and France. Do we expect him to start, get a couple more minutes than the 15 that we saw at the weekend? I know he came back and there was a little bit of an illness, but what do we expect from him in this game? Because that's always going to be the question until we see him actually make his first start for the club.
Yeah, you just mentioned illness, so that's where it's a tough one for me.
Right.
Like, I don't know where that's at, and I don't know how that affects this preparation. Because again, I think we need to
And
have
both of those games were here in the U.S., so it's not like he traveled
correct.
across or overseas for either of those two games.
Yeah, so it really comes down to it's been a little snake bit a little bit because I feel like when the natural progression is like build them in and let's go now to
Yeah.
have them have a run of games and start or get big minutes. One game I think there was a little setback, the Nashville game, and
Mm-hmm.
this kind of has a similar feeling to me where like the combination of wanting to use the break to build up a group of guys that are going to be competitive in this game versus how to use the international guys is really tough for the coaching staff. And then you throw in that you don't want Hamas to play not 100%. It's another tough situation that the staff is being put on themselves. A little bit like the beginning of the year where it just hasn't quite added up to like, let's go Hamas, let's go Minnesota United. And if he's sick, you just don't know. I mean, you
Right.
just don't know where that is. So ultimately, I can't say that. I can only say what an exciting 12 minutes of soccer after that Seattle game.
Right.
It was more like actually with stoppage time, it was more like probably 18 minutes of soccer.
But they looked a lot better offensively, kind of
Oh yeah, yeah.
pulling passes apart or pulling the defense
I
apart,
still thought
finding
that was one of
passes.
the best passes ever at Allianz Field. Like I
That
just
was Joaquin Pereira, wasn't it?
what
You talking about the over the top one to Marcanic?
I'm talking about when Hamas came in and he split two defenders and Markanich almost chipped the ball in to win the game.
Oh,
Seattle late in the season.
Marcanic had a couple. He was on the end of a couple of great
He was on
passes,
a
so I'm
couple,
kind of
but
like
I thought
mixing them together.
the Hamas one was more about there's crazy fast tempo, and he played the exact right pace through two guys right in Marcanic's stride, and he tried to dink it over the top and just missed. So that was one of my favorite passes I've ever seen at Allianz Field.
That feels like, and we know Marcanic has the goals in him after last season, but that feels like a way. I know it's kind of the high risk, high reward play there, but if you can get him on the run, especially on the back post, like he's been dangerous
Oh,
on set
great.
pieces,
Yeah.
he can add another kind of offensive weapon for this team going forward. Elsewhere across the club, obviously, you had internationally, you had Bangahukle Longwane and Carlos Harvey playing against each other
Yeah.
in South Africa.
Twice.
Twice, yeah, twice in a row. Bonky got the start in the second game, played 60 minutes in that one. Carlos Harvey played 90 minutes in both those games, midfield and center back, so he's kind of playing all over the place for Panama as both those teams get ready for the World Cup. Hopefully, we get to see both of those guys in the squad for the World Cup when it's on in North America this summer. But I'm looking forward to this game. There's so many questions across the field that you just kind of want to see them grow and build upon what we saw against Seattle 2 weeks ago. And they've had the time to rest, relax, and then obviously time on the practice field to get going. Anything else that kind of sticking out to you? The one question, I know we haven't talked a whole lot about the Galaxy because this feels like, as you said, one of those games where it's more about what the Loons can do instead of what you're preparing for against the Galaxy. But why has the Galaxy struggled so much without Ricky Pooch? It's one player. Talk about all the time that it's more than just a one player game, but Ricky Pooch is clearly, his absence over the past 2 years has clearly had an effect on the Galaxy and how they play.
Yeah, I mentioned, I think it's that midfield winning battles and then springing Pansel and Peck. And it's a little bit why I think this weekend we have to keep that organized, tight shape and compactness. But I think we will have to have a little more ball possession than we usually do because I think we have to really make their back line and their midfielders recover sometimes and shift the field and do extra things defensively so they can't quite win the spaces to actually spring them. So for me, it's really important that we're organizing a pack like Seattle, but I think it's also important that we use the ball efficiently, if not just for creating chances, but also there's some guys that we need to work really hard so they don't win the ball in spaces that actually can spring Peck and Pansel.
We talk all the time also about wanting to wait until a couple weeks into the season to figure out what teams are. What are the Galaxy to you after what you've seen through the first 5 weeks? Just the one win. It was a 3-0 win over Charlotte, who are kind of in a down slump to start the season, have maybe kind of played themselves out of that, but they're still a question mark as well. But they had the big loss to Colorado, obviously, as we said, came off of, or most of those goals came after LA went down a man to a red card. They were up a man for a significant portion of the Portland game and scored an equalizer late in that one. What are the Galaxy to you so far through 5 games, also on 5 points like Minnesota?
I think they're still looking for their identity and consistency. And again, I think it's a massive game for both teams, but really for the Galaxy at home. Looking at where we are, I think they're like, we need to win this game.
Yeah.
I think we need to use that desperation to make sure that we expose that they're still looking for their identity or consistency. So, ironically, we are too, but I think we have to absorb that they're the home team trying to do that. And we really have to be hungry to have great defensive shape and great defensive work rate because then I think the game will open up. Like I said, I think there's more chances in this game than our last game at home against Seattle.
I think that feels right because you look at the way that defense has kind of been, the LA Galaxy defense has been kind of picked apart by their opponents the past couple weeks, and it feels like if you can run at them, you can get on the run and kind of pull them out of their shape. It feels like after watching those past 3 games, it can be easy to do at times, a little bit easier than it should be with some of the guys they have in the back there. That you can kind of fire goals at Mitrovic, who hasn't really impressed all too much since he's taken over that number one starting job as a goalkeeper in LA. But yeah, it feels like there's certainly some goals in this one. Any final notes on this game before we sign off for the day?
Oh, I just think it's a big game. We got a 2-game road trip now out west each week. Certainly the tougher game on paper is massively going to be San Diego.
Yeah.
But I do look at it like, let's continue with what we did against Seattle, but now let's be a little bit more expansive offensively while still keeping our defensive identity. And again, let's get a little excited about how we can integrate Hamas, hopefully healthy, to get these guys excited about scoring goals as well. So I'm excited to see what the work they've done during the break. I think it is a massive 2-game challenge. It really is, and then we get a little bit more warmer weather and kind of maybe a little bit home teams that I think are winnable games.
Yeah, this should be a really fun one. Saturday night, late one, so get your coffee. It's one of only 3 9:30 kickoffs for the Loons this season in regular season play. 2 of those coming right in a row. Starting with this weekend, LA Galaxy 9:30 kickoff, 9 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself on 1500 ESPN, Score North mobile app. You can watch that one on Apple TV. Elsewhere across the team, Manny, I also got to mention Minnesota United drawing Sacramento Republic in the next round of the U.S. Open
Yes.
Cup. I'm looking forward to that game because that's a team in the USL that has been playing really good soccer the last couple of years. It's a team that's been growing. Obviously had the questions of whether they were going to be one of the next teams in MLS to make the jump up from USL to MLS, but that didn't end up coming through. But that's a team that has put together pretty good rosters. I don't remember off the top of my head where they're at in the USL right now, but that sets up to be a really good matchup.
Yeah, it really does. Really good matchup. That's in Sacramento, right? I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a real tough matchup coming out, and I was hoping we were going to stay a little more regional for the guys to not have to travel so far. But
yeah, that is weird because it feels like looking at the rest of this round and the rest of this draw, the Loons are probably the farthest travelers of this one. They didn't get put in a Midwest group; they got put in the West Coast. And so if they win the next, or should they win against Sacramento Republic, and should San Jose win, they'll have to travel to San Jose as well for that one because San Jose drew the hosting rights, the number one hosting rights in the bracket. So that was weird that they got kind of.
I think I was hoping for Union Omaha. I mean, not an easy opponent either. But,
right, had a run-ins with them the past couple of years. Yeah. So should be fun. Looking forward to the Open Cup coming back into action and seeing how far the Loons can go this time. Hopefully, go all the way and bring home a trophy because that is one of my favorite tournaments, and I love watching it.
I mean, think about last year. It was just such an amazing
heartbreak.
run. Just so close. So back at it. Let's see if we can get a trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it. Looking forward to catching up with you again next week, Manny, right back here on the Matchday Preview presented by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. As we said, 9:30 kickoff this weekend for Minnesota United at the LA Galaxy on Apple TV. Pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself starting at 9 p.m. on 1500 ESPN and Score North mobile app. Looking forward to it. Manny, good talking to you this week. And thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler for putting this on every week. Loons fans, will talk to you next week.
Cheers, guys.